Hey, howdy hey, and welcome back to Emily's Adventures in Horrorland. Today I'm doing a Q&A video answering any questions you may have about me, my colleagues, or the channel in general. First of all, I'd like to thank my patrons for getting me to this point, and to everyone who stops by this channel and watches my videos. I'm very lucky to have you all, and you've all been very lovely people. So without further ado, here are the questions, and Braggart and Killjoy may be dropping in whenever I need them. Okay. So a couple questions to start off. What are horror movies like in England? What do they think of American horror? I know American horror has a lot of slasher movies. Does England have any movies like the big three? Halloween, A Nightmare on Elm Street, and Jason? What is an English horror you would recommend? I don't know if there's a great deal of horror patriotism in the UK. A lot of the horror we watch comes over from the US, and a lot of the horror community whom I consider friends are also from the US. I even married one of them. But we do have some good ones. 28 Days Later, Dog Soldiers, The Haunting, all those Hammer horrors I have yet to embark on. But our big three is your big three. That's a three. I guess you could say horror needs some new iconic figures. As for British movies I'd recommend, again, Dog Soldiers is very good, or there's a couple I'm looking forward to seeing, which are Village of the Damned and Frenzy, directed by Hitchcock. Do you sleep with your doors closed? The bedroom door, yes. I'd rather not see someone creeping up the stairs towards the bedroom. I'd rather just hear the doorknob turn and then prepare myself for battle. Then again, I've had auditory hallucinations before of people breaking into the house, or having a snake or a bee in the room with me, so fun. How long does it take to do a standard movie review / analysis? I can tell you put a lot of time and energy into it. Thank you. Okay, so on the first and second viewing of a film, I'll take rough notes, and then I'll work that into a script the next day or so. And I'll try and bulk it up with stuff from IMDb and the TV Tropes page, maybe DVD special features if there are any. Then after that, I'll record my bits, both to camera and voiceover, and the day after that, Braggart and Killjoy are ready to film their parts. And after that, it's 3 or more days of editing. I know that seems like a long time, but I have very little patience with it. I'm always wanting to click away and watch something on YouTube or just distract myself. Pretty laborious, but I won't let CP edit for me because then what's the point? I've just given up. It's just a principle that I have. So yeah, all in all, 7 or 8 days if I buckle down. How do you feel about horror movies that end with no one to save the day? As in everyone dies, or the movie just ends on a cliffhanger?
Now what?
Well, I don't mind sad or ambiguous endings. I think they make a nice change. Do you prefer modern horror over classic, or vice versa? It depends what you define as classic. I like the aesthetic of a lot of Hammer horror films that I have seen, but because I like body horror and practical effects and all that nonsense, I think the best decade for horror is the 80s. And I think the golden year is actually 1987, which had Hellraiser, Evil Dead 2, The Lost Boys, A Nightmare on Elm Street 3, Prince of Darkness, Necromantic, Monster Squad, and probably many more. What are some things you have learned from CP about making videos, and what are some things you have taught him? CP has been very patient with my not understanding certain things. Because he knows more about filmmaking and editing than I do, he's taught me, for example, the names of different kinds of shots, like dolly zoom or deep focus with the blurry thing in the middle, and other miscellaneous terms like chirons. Ultimately, he also wants me to switch from using PowerDirector 15 to using Final Cut Pro to edit my videos, and hopefully I can make the transition without too much trouble. I'm not sure there's much I've taught him, except maybe the importance of putting research into videos. My stuff is very, very heavily scripted, whereas his, I don't know, he mostly works from bullet points, so I guess the happy medium is somewhere in the middle. Who is your favourite and least favourite slasher? Congrats to you and CP, by the way. Thank you. Okay, so slashers aren't my favourite kind of horror movie because I believe they're more prone to horror movie cliches. In fiction, serial killers are more interesting to me than spree killers because they often have a calling card or MO that the plot treats as a puzzle to be solved. Slashers in horror movies often have no motivation apart from, well, a bunch of teenagers are here, I'd better murder them and string them up impractically. My favourite slasher killer is May from the movie of the same name because her kills are motivated by her mistreatment, but they also have a practical purpose, that is, making a companion. My least favourite is the dude from the Prom Night remake. The most boring obsessive stalker in all of horror. Not to mention the characters are beyond stupid and deserve what they get. What movie that you haven't seen are you looking forward to watching the most? Some horrors on my watch list include Poltergeist, The Haunting, Excision, and The Loved Ones. And I intend to watch this British thing called Ghost Watch at some point. What is one film that you all agree... here we go. Let me text these two. Hello! Hello, yes, I'm here. Go on. What is one film you all agree is good and one you all agree is pure rubbish? I think we can all agree that The Shawshank Redemption and John Carpenter's The Thing are pretty much flawless. I don't agree to that. What's wrong with Shawshank? The warden would have felt the weight of Dufresne's Bible when he picked it up. You are stretching. Okay, there's one plot hole, fair enough. We can all agree that The Bye-Bye Man is atrocious, right? Impressively so. Alright, I do find it hard to defend. Killjoy, you okay there? Need some paracetamol or something? Late night? I'm fine, thank you, just a little chilly. Next. What are your, yes, all three, thoughts on Queen? Not the royal, but the band. I like Queen now and then. I actually grew up with my mother's Greatest Hits Platinum album, which we'd play during dinner and some social gatherings. For a while I seemed pretty set to inherit her good musical taste, but now my iPod's a weird mix of top 40 music, new disco, 80s synth, Drake, Pitbull, electro swing, dubstep, Eastern European trance and alt-rock. I love Queen! There's nothing better than a rousing rendition of We Will Rock You or Bohemian Rhapsody. It makes friends of strangers and brings the world together. Very middle of the road, and they haven't been the same since Adam Lambert replaced Freddie. Alrighty then, you guys can go now. Toodles! Yeah. Who inspired you to make a YouTube channel? Now seems like a weird time to say it, but Channel Awesome? Before I learned about all the grievous mismanagement, it seemed like a very harmonious and productive community. Doug Walker as the nostalgia critic inspired me in particular. I used to marathon his videos when I was depressed, and he released a video which showed the full process of making a nostalgia critic episode. That made starting my own channel seem a lot more doable. I still began reviewing movies on a rather embarrassing WordPress blog before I got my webcam and microphone, but people like Doug Walker and Matthew Buck, Phelan Porteous, Lindsay Ellis made me want to take it to YouTube. Do you ever regret the concept you came up with for your channel? Sure as hell looks like a lot of work. I didn't see this one the first time I wrote all the questions down, so it'll have to be voiceover, sorry. But yes, sometimes I do, if I'm just not in the mood to shoot 3 people and chop up raw files that are more than an hour long. But as long as I'm happy with the end result and think it's funny or insightful enough, it's all fine. If you started a cult, what would it be called and what would be your rituals? What would you worship? Well, you need to be charming and manipulative to be a cult leader, which I'm not, but I'll try and answer this kind of seriously. I've noticed that the cults which gain the most notoriety often start as something else. Aim Shinrikyo's cult began as a yoga class, Manson's cult started with a spiritual bent, so maybe I could set up some kind of delightful library, and bake cookies so the smell will entice people in, and after that we just convert them. To what, you ask? Well, none of these subcategories of cults really do it for me, although I do support polyamory, not polygamy, to a small degree. So if my cult was to carry out acts of ritualistic violence, I think it should be based on delivering justice. We take on large corporations who either carry out unethical business practices, or don't have accountability for environmental irresponsibility, or health and safety violations which cost the lives of innocent workers. We target higher-ups who might receive a punishment of either fines or early retirement with a large bonus, and we deliver non-specific justice. The name isn't too important, so let's just call it the Consortium of Absolutely Nothing to See Here. The cult would encourage loyalty with regular baked goods, we'd have a compulsory but universally flattering uniform, and we would worship, Justice Harlan or something. If you could be one horror character, who would it be? I mean, Ash Williams is pretty badass. He has to put up with a lot in the movies and TV show, from what I understand, but he never really lets it get to him. He just throws a weapon on his stump and starts taking names. I guess the closest female equivalent is Cherry from Planet Terror, but I have yet to see that. How did you come up with the Killjoy and Braggart characters? And a similar question, how did you come up with the idea for Braggart and Killjoy? Have you ever thought of sprouting new alters, i.e. merriment, melancholy, etc.? Also, what the shit happened to Bernard? So the narrative reason for their existence is as protection. Because I accidentally attracted a psychic predator by watching a deep web video, It was necessary to split myself into separate parts so that there was a reduced chance of being possessed by it. I do sometimes have a black and white way of thinking that I've tried to address with therapy, so I felt that Braggart and Killjoy should represent these two extremes of my psyche, and I guess most people's psyches. Ego, high self-esteem, optimism and bravado on one side, and then self-loathing, cynicism and pessimism on the other side. They resemble Dave Lister's confidence and paranoia in Red Dwarf, and may also have been inspired by Jordan Under in his alters. I don't currently have plans to introduce more alters, but I guess we'll see. Bernard came into videos even earlier, as someone to bounce ideas off. He does have a great voice, I would say, very wise and full of authority, and he has a great underlying knowledge of ritual and supernatural goings-on. He came with me to America, he just lives in the bedroom now, on top of the sock drawer, where he belongs. What's your take on The Exorcist? I love The Exorcist. It's very well paced, genuinely chilling, and it looks great even today. I'll be reviewing it soon, don't miss it. What is your animal sign in the Chinese zodiac? I was born in 1993, which makes me a rooster, so that means I'm happy, talkative, and love being the center of attention. But I'm also a Virgo, which means I'm picky, critical, humble, and shy. There's that splitting thing going on again. Do you listen to Throbbing Gristle? Never heard of them. I'll go have a listen. Well, that was very, cataclysmic. Hi dear one, my question is, have you ever had the pleasure of watching a horror film from the silent era? And that is a lot of recommendations. Just one, Nosferatu. I've seen a few other silent films, just not from that era. And Chien Andalou is always a cracker. Spotted dick or pork faggots? I've never tried the former, but I've got a sweet tooth, so I guess I'll go with that. But I think your question is a sneaky attempt to get me to say naughty words. Ha ha. And that's it! I hope you enjoyed this video. I want to thank again my patrons for getting me to this point. Incidentally, if I get to 10 patrons, I'm planning a brief history of horror type video where I unpack each decade and look for specific trends and themes. But I don't expect to get there for a long time, which is good because I have a lot of research to do. If there's anything else you'd like to see from this channel, or if there's a film you want me to review eventually, then by all means let me know. And as always, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Cheerio. Jesus Christ. I just saw myself in the viewfinder. Look how blotchy I've gone. That's from nothing, just sitting here. Jesus.